I'm Stan Ellsworth. You might have heard me talking about history on American Ride. But today, I want to talk about the United States Constitution, how it came to be, why it came to be, and what makes the United States Constitution a revolutionary document even today. So throttle up, baby. Let's hear the story. From the very beginning of our republic, there's been a little bit of a give and take, let's say, between the executive office and the Congress, trying to figure out who it is that really drives this train. Now, one of the ways that the president has expanded his power over the years is through the use of executive orders. Now, the use of these orders really depends on if the president has a broad or narrow interpretation of the Constitution. Narrow interpretation would say, I'm not supposed to do too much. Broad interpretation would say, well, I kind of have this inherent power. Now, as an example, General Washington becomes president. He has probably the narrowest of interpretations of the Constitution. And when President Washington used the executive order, it was basically to clarify a law or to instruct the several agencies of the federal government about how legislation would be enforced. Now, it wasn't long after that John Adams got a hold of the executive pen. And President Adams might have had a much broader view of how the Constitution can be interpreted. He's the guy that came up with the Alien and Sedition Acts. Those acts were very limiting of free speech. Basically, it said that if you criticize the president or the government, we can lock you up. You see where that runs afoul of the First Amendment. Yeah, that one was considered unconstitutional pretty quickly. Now, after Adams, Jefferson comes to office. Tom Jefferson gets faced with a unique problem. See, at the time of Jefferson's presidency, the United States stretched all the way to the east bank of the Mississippi River. All of a sudden, the nation of France is offering to sell to Jefferson, in its entirety, the Louisiana Territory, including the city of New Orleans. If Jefferson can buy Louisiana, number one, he expands the American nation all the way to the Rocky Mountains and maybe the Pacific Ocean. And he completely controls the Mississippi River. Jefferson's in a bind. He's a narrow vision guy. He doesn't know that he has this power. But because this opportunity is so profound, Jefferson says, well, I'm the guy that has the treaty negotiation responsibility. This might be an inherent responsibility. I've got to purchase this land. And so Jefferson signs the executive order and purchases Louisiana. By obtaining control of the Mississippi River, including the port of New Orleans, Thomas Jefferson had guaranteed the success of the American economy for 100 years. Now, you got to ask yourself, which president is it that signed the most executive orders? Well, that would be Franklin Roosevelt, and that stands to reason. The man sat for 3.5 terms. And next to him, it was Theodore Roosevelt. You have to understand that President Theodore Roosevelt was president during a time of great turmoil with the captains of industry or the robber barons. Depends on your point of view. But TR was trying to protect the American people from corporate overreach. Nevertheless, you gotta say, something must have been in the water in the Roosevelt family, as those two boys loved the executive pen. Now, executive orders sometimes give the nation great blessings, like the purchase of Louisiana. But sometimes those executive orders don't work out, like Executive Order 9066. That's the one that incarcerated better than 100,000 American citizens during World War II without due process of law, simply because they had Japanese ancestry. That was a black day in our history. The lesson learned here is, when a president uses that executive pen, he's got to be very cautious. Join us next time for the Constitutional Crises.
Subscribe now. It's history with attitude and the American story with an edge.